Sean Combs, Diddy, Puff Daddy, Puffy, Brother Love. Whatever name you knew him by, there's no denying the man was, for decades, a towering figure in music, fashion, and business. He wasn't just hip-hop. For a long time, he hip-hopped, or at least a very shiny, very successful version of it. He crafted a persona, an empire, built on a potent mix of undeniable talent, relentless ambition, and an almost magical ability to be in the right place at the right time, usually wearing something incredibly expensive. He was the guy who could turn a sample into a chart topper, a party into a legendary event, and a brand into a household name. Think about it. The music, the videos, the lifestyle he projected. It was aspirational for millions. His influence stretched far beyond the recording studio. He was a cultural architect, shaping trends and defining what cool looked like for generations. From the baggy jeans and Timberlands of the 90s to the sharp suits and Kyrock bottles of the 2000s, Diddy was always at the forefront, a self-made impresario who seemed to have the Midas touch. He launched careers, built a multimedia conglomerate, and became a symbol of entrepreneurial success, especially within the Black community. He shouted, "Can't stop, won't stop," and for the longest time, it felt like an undeniable truth, a mantra for his unstoppable rise. He was the ultimate showman, the ultimate hustler, the ultimate brand. But as we stand here in June 2025, that empire is not just shaking, it's facing a full-blown earthquake, a seismic event in the form of a federal trial. The man who once seemed untouchable is now fighting for his freedom, his legacy in tatters. The charges are serious, the allegations disturbing, and the trial is peeling back layers of glamour to reveal something potentially much darker underneath. It's a story that has everyone talking, from longtime fans to casual observers, because it touches on so many things: power, fame, accountability, and the often hidden costs of success in the entertainment world. This isn't just another celebrity scandal. It feels different, bigger. The scale of the investigation, the nature of the charges, and the sheer number of people coming forward paint a picture that is hard to ignore. It's a long way from the champagne-soaked parties and platinum plaques. The journey from the top of the charts to the defendant's chair has been a dramatic one, and it forces us to ask some uncomfortable questions about the systems that build up our idols and, sometimes, allow their alleged transgressions to go unchecked for far too long. What happens when the can't stop, won't stop mentality allegedly crosses lines into coercion and criminality? Sean Combs' story in the beginning was the quintessential American dream, with a hip-hop soundtrack. Born in Harlem and raised in Mount Vernon, New York, he wasn't handed success on a silver platter. His early life was marked by tragedy, losing his father at a young age. But that adversity seemed to fuel an intense drive. He famously dropped out of Howard University, where he was a business major, to intern at Uptown Records. It was there he began to learn the ropes of the music industry, working with artists like Mary J. Blige and Jodeci, quickly earning a reputation for his keen ear for talent and his relentless work ethic. He wasn't just an intern, he was a sponge, soaking up every lesson. It wasn't long before his ambition outgrew Uptown. In 1993, he founded Bad Boy Records, and this is where the legend truly began to take shape. He didn't just sign artists, he cultivated stars. Think about the Notorious Big, Craig Mack, Faith Evans, Ma Dollar E, and the Lox. These weren't just musicians, they were cultural phenomena, and Diddy was the maestro conducting it all. He had an uncanny ability to blend street grit with mainstream appeal, creating a sound that dominated the airwaves and redefined hip-hop's commercial potential. His production style, heavy on recognizable samples and infectious hooks, became the signature of an era. But Diddy wasn't content with just being a record executive. He stepped into the spotlight himself, becoming an artist. Puff Daddy, the flamboyant showman who danced in shiny suits and rapped about the finer things in life. This move further cemented his status as a multi-hyphenate mogul. His business acumen was undeniable. He understood branding before branding was a buzzword everyone used. He diversified into fashion with Sean John, which became a hugely successful clothing line, winning him industry awards. He ventured into restaurants, television, remember? And later, lucrative alcohol partnerships like Ciroc Vodka. He wasn't just making music, he was building an empire brick by expensive brick. His style was as much a part of his brand as his music. He epitomized aspirational luxury, making it cool to be successful and to show it off. He threw legendary parties, lived in lavish homes, and was always seen with the biggest stars. This wasn't just about wealth, It was about creating an image of power, influence, and an almost untouchable level of success. For many, he was living proof that you could come from humble beginnings and conquer the world. He was the charismatic leader of a movement, and Bad Boy Records was its kingdom, a place where dreams were supposedly made, backed by his seemingly infallible Midas touch. Even as the Bad Boy empire glittered under the spotlights, there were, for years, faint whispers in the background, stories that never quite made the headlines but circulated within industry circles. These weren't about bad business deals or artistic differences, they were more unsettling. Rumors began to surface about the nature of Diddy's infamous parties, suggesting they weren't always the carefree celebrations they appeared to be in music videos. There were murmurs about a darker, more controlling side to the charismatic mogul, a stark contrast to the fun-loving public persona he so carefully cultivated. These whispers often involved young artists and employees, particularly women. A significant part of this early veil of secrecy involved the alleged widespread use of non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs. Now, NDAs aren't uncommon in business, especially in the entertainment industry, where trade secrets and creative projects need protection. However, the rumors suggested that at Bad Boy and within Diddy's broader circle, these agreements were sometimes used for different purposes, to ensure silence about personal conduct, workplace environments, or even potentially problematic behavior. When you have a powerful figure and a culture of NDAs, it creates an environment where people might be hesitant to speak out, fearing legal repercussions or career sabotage. For a long time, very few people spoke out publicly. There were a few early lawsuits and settlements, often quietly resolved, that hinted at some of the issues, but they rarely gained mainstream traction or led to a broader public reckoning. Several factors contributed to this silence. Diddy was an incredibly powerful figure with immense resources and influence. Speaking out against him could mean career suicide in an industry where connections are everything. Furthermore, there's the complex dynamic of loyalty and fear that can exist around such powerful personalities. People might have felt indebted, intimidated, or simply unsure of who would believe them. The culture of celebrity itself often protects its biggest stars. Fans, and sometimes even the media, can be reluctant to believe negative stories about their idols. There's a desire to maintain the illusion, to keep the Puff Daddy character separate from Sean Combs, the man. So while the rumors persisted, they often remained just that, rumors, confined to gossip columns or hushed conversations, never quite solidifying into a public crisis for the Bad Boy chief. This created a situation where potential patterns of behavior could continue unchecked, shielded by layers of power, legal agreements, and the general reluctance to challenge a beloved icon. The carefully constructed dam of silence around Sean Combs began to show serious cracks in late 2023 and then burst wide open in early 2024. It started with a high-profile lawsuit filed by his former girlfriend, singer Cassie Ventura, in November 2023. Though settled quickly, the details of her complaint were shocking, alleging years of abuse, control, and even sex trafficking. Cassie's lawsuit seemed to empower others. Suddenly, it was as if a spell had been broken. A wave of other lawsuits followed, filed by multiple women, each telling stories that echoed and amplified Cassie's disturbing claims. The whispers had become a roar. The main claims in these lawsuits painted a consistent and deeply troubling picture. Accusers described an environment allegedly characterized by pervasive fear and absolute control. They spoke of Diddy as a master manipulator, someone who could be incredibly charming one moment and terrifyingly volatile the next. There were allegations of psychological abuse, intimidation, and the creation of an atmosphere where questioning his authority or desires was simply not an option. This wasn't just about bad temper. It was about a systematic pattern of behavior designed to dominate and subjugate those around him, particularly women in his orbit. Forced loyalty was another recurring theme. Several accusers, including former employees and artists, described being pressured into situations that made them deeply uncomfortable, allegedly feeling they had no choice but to comply if they wanted to keep their jobs, advance their careers, or simply avoid his wrath. The lawsuits detailed instances of alleged physical abuse, sexual assault, and coercion into unwanted sexual acts. The narrative suggested a pattern of isolating individuals, controlling their communications, and using his immense power and influence to ensure their silence and compliance. These weren't isolated incidents, according to the plaintiffs. They were part of a modus operandi. The sheer number of women coming forward, many with strikingly similar stories, made it impossible for the public and the authorities to dismiss them as mere disgruntled individuals or attempts at a cash grab, as Diddy's camp initially tried to frame them. The allegations spanned decades, suggesting a long-standing pattern. The claims of being drugged, coerced into sex with others, and subjected to violent outbursts created a chilling narrative that was a far cry from the can't stop, won't stop mantra of success. Instead, it sounded more like a nightmare from which many were only now finding the courage to speak. While the civil lawsuits were piling up, creating, a public relations nightmare for Diddy, things took an even more serious turn in March 2024. Federal prosecutors, specifically from the Southern District of New York, a notoriously tenacious office, launched a major investigation. This wasn't just about individual assault claims anymore. The feds were looking at Diddy and his operations through the lens of the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, or RICO. Now, RICO is a big deal. It's a law originally designed to take down organized crime syndicates like the mafia. Applying it here suggested prosecutors believed Diddy's businesses might have been part of a criminal enterprise. The main charges that eventually emerged from this investigation were heavy sex trafficking by force, fraud or coercion, racketeering conspiracy, money laundering, and obstruction of justice. Let's break that down. Sex trafficking charges mean they believe he coerced individuals into commercial sex acts, potentially across state lines. Racketeering implies a pattern of illegal activities conducted through his companies. Money laundering suggests attempts to disguise the origins of illegally obtained money. And obstruction of justice means they think he tried to interfere with their investigation, perhaps by intimidating witnesses or destroying evidence. These are charges that can lead to decades, even life, in prison. A very public display of the investigation's seriousness came in April 2025, with coordinated federal raids on Diddy's lavish homes in Los Angeles and Miami. News helicopters hovered as Homeland Security investigations agents, clad in tactical gear, swarmed the properties. These weren't subtle inquiries. They were dramatic, high-profile actions designed to gather evidence and send a clear message. Reports indicated that investigators seized a significant amount of potential evidence, surveillance equipment, numerous unregistered firearms, multiple non-disclosure agreements signed by employees, and a collection of burner phones, the kind often used to evade detection. Each item potentially bolsters the prosecution's narrative of a secretive, coercive, and possibly criminal operation. The investigation moved swiftly. By September 2024, Diddy was arrested, and in November, a judge denied him bail, citing compelling evidence of Combs's propensity for violence and the risk of him tampering with witnesses. This was a stunning development for a man who had been a global icon. The federal government essentially argued that Sean Combs, the music mogul, was potentially the leader of a criminal enterprise that exploited and abused people for years, all while hidden behind the facade of his legitimate businesses. The trial, which began in May 2025, is the culmination of this intense federal scrutiny. In a trial as complex and high stakes as this one, witness testimony is absolutely crucial, and the prosecution has been lining up a series of individuals whose stories they believe will paint a damning picture of Diddy's alleged conduct. One of the most important early witnesses has been Cassandra Cassie Ventura. Her testimony, detailing years of alleged violent abuse, coerced sex acts, and being forced into freak-off performances, as she termed them, set a grim tone for the trial. The existence of a 2016 hotel surveillance video, reportedly showing Combs attacking her, is a powerful piece of corroborating evidence the prosecution is leveraging to support her claims of sustained abuse. Then there's the testimony of a woman identified by the pseudonym Mia, a former employee who worked for Combs from 2009 to 2017. Her account is vital because it speaks directly to the alleged environment of fear, control, and manipulation within his inner circle. Mia testified to daily micromanagement, intense psychological manipulation, intimidation, and even sexual assault. She described a workplace where loyalty was demanded and dissent was allegedly met with severe consequences. Her testimony aims to show a pattern of coercive control that extended beyond romantic relationships into his professional sphere, reinforcing the idea of a broader enterprise. The defense attempted to discredit Mia by presenting a 2015 birthday video she sent to Combs, in which she appeared friendly and complimentary. However, Mia, supported by expert psychological testimony, explained this as a potential example of trauma bonding and complex PTSD. Dr. Dawn Hughes, a forensic psychologist, testified that victims of sustained domestic violence and psychological abuse often exhibit behaviors that might seem counterintuitive, like appearing to participate willingly or showing affection towards their abuser. This is often a survival mechanism, born out of fear, financial dependence, or the insidious effects of emotional and sexual manipulation. It's a complex but critical point for the jury to understand. Other witnesses have come forward to support these narratives. Kid Cudi testified about Diddy allegedly breaking into his home and his car being torched, which he believes was related to his relationship with Cassie, adding weight to the racketeering charge by suggesting violent intimidation tactics. Dawn Richard, a former singer with Danity Kane, corroborated parts of Cassie's testimony, stating she witnessed Combs physically attacking Ventura. A hotel security guard testified to seeing the 2016 attack on Cassie and being bribed to stay silent. Even a male escort testified to being paid for sex acts involving Cassie while Combs watched, and also witnessing physical abuse. These voices collectively aim to dismantle the glamorous facade of the Diddy empire. Faced with a mountain of damning allegations and a relentless prosecution, Sean Combs' defense team, a high-powered group of attorneys, has been actively fighting back on multiple fronts. Their core strategy appears to be a complete denial of the most serious charges, particularly sex trafficking and racketeering. While Combs' lead attorney has, at times, admitted to past violent behavior, they vehemently deny any criminal enterprise or forced commercial sex acts. They are painting Diddy not as a criminal mastermind, but as a victim himself, a target of a smear campaign fueled by individuals seeking financial gain and prosecutors succumbing to public pressure. The defense has employed various legal tactics to challenge the prosecution's case. They've filed numerous motions to suppress evidence, arguing that some items seized during the raids were obtained improperly or that there were violations in the chain of custody. Such motions are standard in criminal defense, aiming to chip away at the evidence the jury will be allowed to see and hear. They have also raised arguments of prosecutorial bias, even suggesting racial bias in the application of laws like the Mann Act, related to transporting individuals for prostitution. One of Combs' attorneys even withdrew from the team in February 2025, hinting at internal pressures or strategic disagreements. During cross-examinations of prosecution witnesses, the defense has sought to poke holes in their credibility and consistency. For example, with Mia, they highlighted the birthday video as evidence that her relationship with Combs wasn't as abusive as she claimed. With other witnesses, they might focus on past inconsistencies in statements or potential motives for testifying against Combs, such as financial incentives from civil lawsuits. They are trying to introduce doubt, to suggest that the narratives presented by the accusers are not entirely accurate or are being exaggerated. The testimony of Sheree Hayes, an exotic dancer who described consensual sex acts involving Combs and Ventura, could be used by the defense to complicate the prosecution's trafficking narrative regarding Ventura. Beyond specific witness challenges, the defense is likely arguing that while Diddy may have been a demanding boss or a flawed partner, his actions do not rise to the level of a federal criminal enterprise. They will try to separate his personal failings from the specific legal definitions of racketeering and sex trafficking. The burden of proof is on the prosecution to prove these complex charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Combs himself rejected a plea deal on May 1, 2025, choosing to take his chances at trial, which indicates a belief, or at least a hope, that his legal team can successfully dismantle the government's case against him. The Diddy trial hasn't just been confined to the courtroom, it has spilled over into the realms of politics and pop culture, creating ripples far beyond the legal arguments. Perhaps one of the most unexpected twists came in late May 2025, when former President Donald Trump, during a campaign rally, commented on the Diddy situation. Trump stated he would look at the facts regarding a potential pardon for Sean Combs if this political persecution continues. This statement immediately ignited a firestorm of controversy. Combs and Trump have a known acquaintance dating back to the 1990s, but the suggestion of a pardon, especially for such serious charges, was seen by many as an inappropriate political intervention in an ongoing federal case. The reaction from the music industry and business partners has been a mix of swift action and conspicuous silence. Several major brands that had lucrative partnerships with Combs, most notably Ciroc Vodka and his own Revolt TV media company, quickly moved to suspend or sever ties pending the trial's outcome. These were significant financial blows, indicating how toxic the allegations had become. It's a clear signal that the corporate world, at least publicly, wants to distance itself from the scandal. The bad boy image, once a marketable asset, had transformed into a massive liability virtually overnight, a testament to the severity of the accusations. Celebrity reactions have been varied and telling. Some, like fellow rapper 50 Cent, have taken to social media to relentlessly mock Combs, capitalizing on his downfall. This public schadenfreude highlights existing rivalries and perhaps a shifting power dynamic within the industry. However, many other high-profile figures, particularly those who rose to fame alongside Diddy or collaborated with him extensively, like Jay-Z and Beyoncé, have remained notably silent. This silence can be interpreted in many ways, perhaps as cautiousness, loyalty, or simply an unwillingness to get drawn into such a messy and damaging public spectacle. Regardless, it underscores the discomfort and division the case has caused within the entertainment elite. Beyond the big names, there's a sense that many in the industry are quietly distancing themselves. Collaborations have reportedly been shelved and appearances canceled. The allegations have cast a long shadow, making association with Diddy radioactive for many artists and businesses. Fan reactions, too, are deeply divided. Some longtime supporters find the allegations hard to believe, clinging to the image of the charismatic hitmaker. Others feel betrayed and disgusted, reevaluating his entire legacy in light of the disturbing claims. The trial is forcing a difficult conversation about separating the art from the artist, especially when the artist is accused of such profound harm. As the trial continues into June 2025, the stakes for Sean Diddy Combs could not be higher. If convicted on the most serious charges, particularly the sex trafficking and Rico counts, he faces the possibility of life in prison, with a statutory minimum of 25 years. For a man who built an empire on an image of invincibility and control, the prospect of spending his remaining years behind bars is a devastating potential reality. Even if he were to be acquitted of some charges, the sheer weight of the evidence presented, the public nature of the accusations, and the testimonies of numerous accusers have already inflicted irreparable damage on his reputation and his business empire. The king of shiny suit men is now fighting for his very freedom. Beyond the personal fate of Sean Combs, this trial carries significant implications for the entertainment industry as a whole. It's forcing a long overdue conversation about power dynamics, accountability, and the systems that may have, for too long, enabled or overlooked abuse by powerful figures. The Diddy case, much like the Me Too movement exposed issues in Hollywood, is shining a harsh light on the music world. It raises questions about how much was known or suspected by others in positions of power, and why it took so long for these allegations to come to the forefront in such a significant way. Will this lead to meaningful change in how the industry polices itself? This trial is also a major test for how society grapples with allegations against beloved celebrities. It challenges fans and the public to look beyond the carefully crafted personas and confront the possibility that their idols may have a dark side. The detailed testimonies about trauma, PTSD, and the complex reasons why victims might not immediately report abuse or might even appear friendly with their abusers are educating the public on the nuances of such cases. It highlights the immense courage it takes for accusers to come forward, especially when facing a wealthy and influential defendant with a formidable legal team and a legion of supporters. Ultimately, the Diddy trial is more than just the story of one man's spectacular rise and potential fall. It's a mirror reflecting uncomfortable truths about fame, power, and the potential for exploitation that can exist within industries built on image and influence. Regardless of the final verdict, the proceedings have already sparked a reckoning. It serves as a stark reminder that even the most glittering empires can crumble when confronted with credible accusations of serious wrongdoing, and that the pursuit of justice, however delayed, can eventually reach even the highest echelons of celebrity. The question remains, will this be a true turning point or just another sensational chapter in the long history of celebrity scandals?